My name is Elia. I'm 32 years old, and last night at exactly 8:42 p.m., I destroyed an 8-year lie in front of 300 investors, business partners, and journalists. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't even raise my voice. I simply displayed one federal audit report on a giant screen. 3 minutes later, the multi-million-dollar empire my mother had built around my sister's so-called terminal illness began collapsing in real time. People stopped clapping. Investors started making phone calls. And my sister, the woman who had spent years convincing the world she was dying, ran off the stage in tears. The strange part isn't that I exposed them. The strange part is that they spent 8 years believing I never would. It all started when I refused to finance another one of my sister's so-called life-saving treatments. According to my mother, saying no made me a monster. She told our relatives I had abandoned my own family. She told donors I cared more about money than my sister's life. She even stood in my childhood home, pointed at the front door, and said, "If you won't help your sister, then you don't belong in this family." That night, I packed one suitcase and left. Behind me, they kept building the perfect story: a brave young woman fighting a mysterious disease, a devoted mother sacrificing everything, a family asking for hope, and donations. People believed every word. Over the years, that story brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars, media attention, celebrity endorsements, and eventually a wellness company worth millions. Everyone thought I had disappeared. Everyone assumed I had accepted defeat. They couldn't have been more wrong, because while they were selling sympathy, I was learning how federal investigations actually work. And unlike emotions, documents don't lie. Before I tell you how one audit report destroyed everything they had built, and why my mother desperately tried to stop me while my sister fled the stage, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications if you believe the truth always comes out in the end. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are right now? To understand what happened at 8:42 p.m. last night, you first have to understand how my family worked. We weren't dysfunctional in the obvious way. There were no screaming matches every day, no broken furniture, no dramatic scenes that made neighbors call the police. Our family functioned with something much more effective: roles. Everyone had one. My mother was the protector. Lila was the survivor. And I was the resource. Lila had always been the center of our universe. When we were children, if she wanted the last slice of birthday cake, she got it. If we both wanted the same Christmas present, she got it. If she forgot her homework, my mother drove it to school. If I forgot mine, I was told that responsibility builds character. At first, I thought that was just normal. Families aren't perfectly fair. I accepted that. But everything changed when I was 19. That's when Lila became sick. Not with cancer, not with leukemia, not with any disease people immediately recognize. Instead, it was always described the same way: rare, complex, poorly understood, progressive. Those 4 words became the foundation of everything that followed. Whenever someone asked for details, my mother would sigh dramatically before saying, "The doctors still don't fully understand it." It was the perfect explanation. Complicated enough that nobody asked follow-up questions, serious enough that everyone immediately felt sympathy, and vague enough that nothing could ever be verified. At first, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my mother. The appointments became constant. New specialists every few weeks, private clinics, functional medicine experts, alternative treatment centers, wellness retreats in California, Arizona, and Colorado. Every month there was another emergency, another experimental therapy, another treatment insurance supposedly refused to cover. Every conversation at home revolved around one thing: saving Lila. My mother transformed our lives into a mission. Family dinners disappeared, vacations disappeared, birthdays became fundraising opportunities, even holidays became centered around Lila's fight. Then social media entered the picture. It started with a Facebook page, then Instagram, eventually YouTube, professional photographs, soft lighting, designer pajamas, fresh flowers beside hospital beds, inspirational captions. Another difficult day. Still fighting. Thank you for believing in miracles. Thousands of people shared those posts. Comments poured in. You're such an inspiration. Stay strong. We're praying for you." Then came the donations. At first they were small, $20, $50, $100. Then local businesses organized charity events. Church groups collected money. Online fundraising campaigns exceeded every expectation. The more emotional the story became, the more money arrived. Eventually, my mother launched something she called Lila Life Wellness. Officially, it was supposed to raise awareness about rare illnesses. In reality, it became a lifestyle brand built entirely around my sister's story. Branded supplements, motivational journals, premium memberships, speaking events, merchandise, everything wrapped in the same message: hope, healing, never give up. People weren't buying vitamins, they were buying the story, and business was good, really good. Meanwhile, my own life looked completely different. I worked mornings at a coffee shop, afternoons in an accounting office, weekends wherever someone needed temporary staff. 70-hour weeks became normal. Not because I was trying to build a career, because every month there was another bill my mother couldn't afford. The clinic needs payment by Friday. Insurance denied another treatment. The specialist won't see Lila unless we pay up front. Every paycheck I earned disappeared almost immediately. I stopped buying new clothes. I stopped traveling. I postponed graduate school twice. When friends invited me somewhere, I usually declined. There was always another expense connected to Lila. Whenever I hesitated, my mother knew exactly what to say. "Your sister is fighting for her life. Money can be earned again. Family comes first." Guilt became the family currency. The strange thing was, the more I paid attention, the less everything made sense. Lila looked surprisingly healthy between fundraising campaigns. During photo shoots, she appeared exhausted. The following weekend, she would spend 6 hours shopping with friends. She claimed she couldn't walk across a parking lot without pain. A few days later, she posted videos dancing at private events. Whenever I noticed these contradictions, my mother always had an explanation. "Good days happen. You don't understand how chronic illness works. Stop judging your sister." Eventually, I started asking more specific questions. Which hospital prescribed this medication? Which specialist recommended this treatment? Could I see the medical report? Could I read the diagnosis? The room always became quiet. My mother's expression changed immediately. Not sadness, not fear, cold irritation. Then she would answer with exactly the same sentence. "Lila is fighting for her life, Elia. The least you can do is stop asking questions." Never an explanation, never a document, never an answer. Just another accusation. According to her, asking for evidence meant I lacked compassion. Requesting medical records meant I didn't trust my own family. Looking for facts somehow made me selfish. So I stopped asking out loud. Not because I believed them, because I realized something important. Every question I asked threatened the story, and the story had become far more valuable than the truth. From that moment on, I did something my mother never noticed. I stopped arguing. And I started paying attention. Every doctor's appointment, every receipt, every fundraising campaign, every inconsistency, every number. Because stories depend on emotions, patterns depend on evidence. And evidence has a way of surviving much longer than lies. Everything changed on November 14th. It was a Tuesday, exactly 3 weeks after my 24th birthday. I got home from my second job at 7:42 p.m. The house was unusually quiet. My mother and Lila had gone to another one of their so-called healing ceremonies downtown, a private wellness event where tickets cost $500 per person. According to social media, these gatherings were life-changing experiences for people facing chronic illness. According to my bank account, I had just worked 14 straight hours to help pay for them. I walked into the kitchen to pour myself a glass of water. That's when I saw it. Lying in the middle of our white marble island was a thick brown manila folder. My mother was usually meticulous. She locked every document away. She shredded receipts. She password-protected everything. But that evening she had been in a hurry. For the first time in years, she forgot to hide the truth. The folder carried the logo of a federal diagnostic evaluation center. I froze. Then I looked toward the front door, still silent. No cars, no voices, nothing. I picked it up, I'm an accountant. People assume accountants spend their lives reading reports from the first page. We don't. We read the conclusion first. That's where numbers stop talking. And facts begin. At 7:45 p.m., I turned directly to page 42. Rows of laboratory values filled the page. White blood cell count, inflammatory markers, neurological evaluations, immune function. Every column showed the same result. Normal, perfectly normal. Not slightly improved, not stable, normal. Then my eyes reached the final paragraph. 2 short sentences, black ink on white paper, no room for interpretation. No evidence of systemic, autoimmune, neurological, or degenerative disease was identified. The second sentence hit even harder. Patient is clinically healthy. I read it again, then again. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe there was another report. Maybe this belonged to someone else. I checked the name, Lila Harper. Date of birth, correct. Patient identification number, correct. Independent evaluation requested by the insurance provider, correct. There was no mention of the mysterious illness that had defined our lives. No rare syndrome. No progressive disease. No terminal diagnosis. Nothing. Lila wasn't dying. She wasn't recovering. She wasn't even sick. She was a perfectly healthy 22-year-old woman. I didn't drop the folder. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply stood beneath the cold fluorescent light above the kitchen island while 15 years of my life rearranged themselves inside my head. Every birthday I had skipped, every vacation I never took, every overtime shift, every paycheck handed over without question, every piece of secondhand clothing I wore because Lila needed treatment, every moment I felt guilty simply because I was healthy. Every sacrifice rested on a lie that fit into 2 typed sentences. The front door opened at 8:15 p.m. I heard laughter before I saw them. My mother walked into the kitchen first, slipping off her expensive cashmere coat. She smiled, until she noticed me. Then she noticed the folder. For a brief second, I expected panic, fear, maybe tears, maybe an apology. Instead, she looked annoyed, as if I had interrupted an important business call. Nothing more. I held up the report. She's healthy. My own voice sounded unfamiliar in the silence. It says there isn't any disease. My mother walked toward me without rushing. Her expression became perfectly blank. Put that back, Elia. Her tone was calm, controlled. You don't understand what you're reading. I understand medical conclusions just fine. I tapped the final page. It says she's healthy. It says there is no disease. It says everything you've been telling people for years isn't true. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she stepped close enough to take the folder from my hands. Not gently, not violently, deliberately. She pulled it away, closed it, and placed it behind her. You are looking at this far too simply, she said. Lila gives people hope. Hope, not treatment. Hope. Our story brings thousands of people together. Our foundation inspires families. Our work changes lives. She wasn't defending my sister. She wasn't defending medicine. She wasn't even defending the truth. She was defending the business, the brand, the machine they had spent years building. I stared at her. You're lying to thousands of people. She folded her arms. No, we're giving them something to believe in. I felt something inside me break. Not my heart, my illusion. Until that moment, part of me still believed there had to be some misunderstanding, some explanation, some hidden medical complexity. There wasn't. This wasn't denial, it was strategy. My mother knew exactly what she was doing, and she believed the outcome justified the deception. I'm not doing this anymore, I said. Her expression changed for the first time, not sadness, not regret, disappointment, as though I had failed an exam. She straightened her back, looked directly into my eyes, then delivered the sentence that ended my life as I knew it. If you can't support this family, she said quietly, then you are no longer part of it. She paused just long enough for every word to settle. If you refuse to help your sister, you don't belong in this house. Then came the final instruction. Pack your things. She never raised her voice. She didn't have to. She wasn't arguing. She was issuing a verdict. I had 45 minutes. I walked upstairs without another word. I didn't touch anything they had ever bought for me. The jewelry stayed. The television stayed. The furniture stayed. I opened my closet and pulled out the only suitcase I truly owned. A plain black 26-inch nylon suitcase I had bought myself during an end-of-season clearance sale. Inside, I packed only what belonged to me: my work clothes, my laptop, a few notebooks, and my grandmother's old wristwatch. Nothing else mattered. When I finished, I carried the suitcase downstairs. I placed my house keys on the small table beside the front door. No note, no goodbye, no dramatic speech. At 9:02 p.m., I quietly closed the door behind me. Rain had started falling. Cold November rain. The kind that soaks through your clothes within minutes and makes every streetlight look blurred. I pulled my suitcase toward the nearest bus stop. Its plastic wheels rattled across the wet pavement, loud enough to echo through the empty street. Under a dim yellow street lamp, I opened my wallet. $142 in cash, $86 on my debit card, a total of $183. That was my entire financial life. That night, I rented a room at a roadside motel for $45. The carpet smelled damp. An old refrigerator hummed constantly in the corner. Rain tapped against the window for hours. I sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time all evening, I smiled, not because I was happy, because everything finally made sense. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even heartbroken. I was clear, completely clear. I realized something that would shape every decision I made over the next 8 years. Systems built on emotion, on sympathy, and on carefully manufactured stories can survive almost anything. They can silence critics, destroy reputations, manipulate public opinion. They can defeat anyone who fights them emotionally. But every one of those systems shares the same fatal weakness. They survive only until they collide with verified evidence. That federal report had shown me something far more valuable than the truth about my sister. It showed me exactly how my mother's empire would eventually fall. She believed throwing me out that rainy November night protected her perfect narrative. What she didn't realize was that she had just given me a new purpose. From that moment forward, I dedicated my life to understanding one thing better than anyone else: not revenge. The next 8 years didn't look like revenge. They looked like long nights, government manuals, and endless spreadsheets. After leaving home, I finished my accounting degree and accepted every compliance job I could find. While other people chased promotions, I chased something else: evidence. I wanted to understand how large fraud investigations actually worked. That was when I met Marcus Hale. Marcus was a senior federal auditor with more than 30 years of investigative experience. He wasn't warm or encouraging. In fact, during our first week working together, he barely remembered my name. But he noticed something. Unlike most analysts, I never jumped to conclusions. I checked every number twice, sometimes 3 times. One evening, after everyone else had gone home, Marcus found me comparing hundreds of bank transfers that didn't quite match. He looked at the spreadsheet and asked, "What are you trying to prove?" "I'm not trying to prove anything," I answered. "I'm trying to understand what happened." For the first time, he smiled. "Good," he said, "because investigators don't prove theories, they verify facts." From that day forward, Marcus became my unofficial mentor. He taught me that every fraud leaves a pattern. People lie. Bank records don't. Stories change. Transactions don't. He showed me how fake charities move money through consulting fees, travel reimbursements, marketing expenses, and shell companies. He taught me that the biggest mistake investigators make is looking for dramatic evidence. Real fraud hides inside ordinary paperwork. By the time I turned 30, I had joined a federal compliance division responsible for reviewing financial misconduct involving healthcare and nonprofit organizations. Every week, new investigations landed on my desk. Most were routine, until one Thursday morning. I logged into the assignment system and opened the newest audit queue. The 4th file stopped me cold. Lila Life Wellness, LLC. For several seconds, I simply stared at the screen. There was my sister. Professional photographs. A polished corporate logo. The same story I had heard for years. Built from survival. I immediately disclosed my family connection to my supervisor. Federal rules were clear. I couldn't make the final decision. But because I specialized in financial tracing, I was allowed to assist the investigation while every finding was independently reviewed. That protection mattered, because what I found over the following weeks shocked even me. The company claimed its startup capital came from private family investments. It didn't. Every dollar led back to the Lila Hope Foundation, the charity that had spent years collecting donations for my sister's supposed medical treatment. I started following the money. Donation platforms, bank transfers, credit card statements, vendor invoices, everything connected. When I finished mapping the accounts, one number appeared at the bottom of my report. $417,860. That was how much people had donated, because they believed they were helping save my sister's life. Then I categorized every expense. The first category was legitimate medical costs, routine appointments, basic laboratory testing, insurance payments. Only 18% of the donations fit that category. Then came the second category, luxury travel, 5-star hotels, private wellness resorts, designer handbags, jewelry boutiques, luxury clothing stores, business class flights to Europe. The total kept growing, 40%, 50, 60. When I finished calculating, I checked the spreadsheet twice. 64% of every donated dollar had paid for luxury living. Not treatment, not medicine, not research. Luxury. The remaining funds had been transferred into new business accounts that later became Lila Life Wellness. In other words, people believed they were funding a dying young woman. They were actually financing a lifestyle brand. When the preliminary audit was complete, Marcus stopped by my office. He silently read the executive summary before looking at me. Can every number be verified? Yes. Can every transaction be traced? Yes. He closed the file. Then, congratulations, he said quietly. You don't have a family story anymore. You have a federal case. At that moment, I finally understood something. 8 years earlier, my mother threw me out because I refused to protect her lie. Now, that same lie had found its way onto my desk. Only this time, it wasn't being judged by a daughter. It was being examined by the federal system she had spent years believing she could outsmart. Not justice, evidence. Because stories can persuade people, but verified facts have the power to destroy empires. 8 years. That was how long it took my mother to contact me. Not 8 days, not 8 months. 8 years of complete silence. No birthday messages, no Christmas cards, no questions about whether I was alive. Nothing. Then, one Monday morning at 9:07 a.m., my work phone buzzed with a new email. The sender's name made me stop breathing for a second. Margaret Harper. My mother. The subject line was almost laughable. Family reunion. I opened it expecting an apology. There wasn't one. Not a single sentence acknowledging what she had done. No mention of throwing me out. No mention of the lies. No mention of the 8 years that had disappeared between us. Instead, the email read as if we had spoken the previous weekend. Hi, Elia. I hope you're doing well. It's been far too long. Lila Life Wellness is hosting its annual gala next Friday evening. Several investors, media partners, and healthcare organizations will be attending. It would mean so much to your sister if the whole family were there. We'd love for you to join us. I know you'll make the right decision. That was it. No apology, just an invitation. I read it 3 times, not because it was emotional, because it was strategic. My mother hadn't written to her daughter, she had written to an asset. I searched the event online. The gala wasn't just another charity dinner, it was the biggest event Lila Life had ever organized. More than 300 invited guests, investment firms, journalists, corporate sponsors, influencers, potential retail partners. The company was preparing to launch a nationwide expansion. Everything depended on credibility. Then I noticed something interesting. Every promotional photograph showed only my mother and Lila. No father, no siblings, no complete family. For a brand built around love, hope, and family values. That absence created questions, and questions make investors uncomfortable. Suddenly, the invitation made perfect sense. They didn't miss me. They needed me. A successful older sister standing beside the founder would complete the picture. happy family, perfect story, no loose ends. I leaned back in my chair and smiled for the first time all morning. 8 years earlier, my mother told me I didn't belong in the family. Now she wanted me standing in the front row. Not because she loved me, because cameras would be watching. About an hour later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? Elia? My mother's voice hadn't changed. Confident, controlled, as if no time had passed at all. I'm glad you read my email. I did. So, you'll come? No apology, no hesitation. Straight to business. Why now? I asked. There was a brief pause. Then she laughed softly. Oh, sweetheart, enough time has passed. As if time erased betrayal. As if 8 years automatically repaired everything. Lila really wants her big sister there. I almost laughed. The same sister who had watched me leave without saying a word. The press will be there, my mother continued. There will be photographs. We want everyone to see that family always comes together. There it was. Not grief. Not love. Marketing. I let the silence stretch for several seconds. Then I answered. I'll be there. She sounded relieved immediately. I knew you'd do the right thing. After hanging up, I stared out the office window. Marcus walked past my desk carrying a stack of files. He noticed my expression. Bad news? No. I closed my laptop. Interesting news. He sat across from me. I told him everything, the invitation, the gala, the investors, the media, the sudden desire to become a family again. When I finished, Marcus didn't say anything for nearly a minute. Finally, he asked one question. What happens if you simply refuse? They'll hold the event anyway, and they'll keep telling the same story, he nodded slowly. So where does the truth create the greatest impact? I already knew the answer, not in court, not online, not through anonymous leaks, on their stage, inside their own event, with every investor watching. Marcus stood up. If you're going to do this, he said, don't embarrass them. I looked at him. Document them. That single sentence became the entire plan. Before I tell you what happened next, let me pause for a second. If your own family threw you out onto the street, ignored you for 8 years, and then suddenly invited you back just to play the role of the happy, supportive sister in front of investors, would you go? Tell me honestly in the comments. I'd really like to know what you would do. And now, let me show you how I played my cards. Preparation started the very next morning. I wasn't choosing a dress. I was preparing evidence. The audit report already existed. But raw documents don't change minds. Presentation does. For 3 evenings after work, I reorganized every finding into a format anyone could understand within seconds. Medical records first. The independent federal examination clearly stating that Lila showed no evidence of systemic, autoimmune, neurological, or degenerative disease. Then the financial records, donation history, bank transfers, expense reports. Finally, the most devastating page of all. A single pie chart, total donations, $417,860, 18%, legitimate medical expenses, 64%, luxury travel, designer clothing, 5-star hotels, wellness resorts, 18%, transferred into business accounts used to launch Lila Life Wellness. No dramatic language, no accusations, just verified numbers, exactly the way Marcus had taught me. Every figure included a reference number. Every document could be independently verified. Every page was time-stamped. Every conclusion had supporting evidence. When I finished, the presentation contained only 21 slides. Short, clean, impossible to misunderstand. The final step was almost absurdly simple. I bought a brand new 32-gigabyte USB flash drive. No labels, no stickers, nothing that attracted attention. I copied the presentation, the certified audit summary, supporting financial records, medical documentation, and one final PDF, prepared specifically for journalists. Then I encrypted the drive and created 2 identical backups. One stayed in my apartment, one went into my office safe. The original slipped quietly into the inside pocket of the black blazer I planned to wear to the gala. For 8 years, my mother had built an empire around a story. Next Friday night, all it would take to destroy that empire was a single USB drive. Friday arrived with clear skies. By 6 o'clock that evening, the city skyline reflected gold in the glass towers surrounding the Grand Regent Hotel. From the outside, it looked less like a conference venue and more like a palace built for people who believed success could be measured in marble and crystal. I arrived at 6:52 p.m., black suit. No jewelry except my grandmother's watch. The USB drive rested inside my jacket pocket. It weighed less than an ounce. It also contained enough evidence to erase 8 years of lies. Inside, the ballroom looked exactly as I expected. Towering crystal chandeliers hung nearly 30 feet above polished marble floors. Warm amber lights reflected off hundreds of wine glasses arranged with mathematical precision. Round tables draped in white linen stretched across the room, like perfectly aligned islands. At the far end stood a massive LED screen, nearly 15 feet wide. That screen would determine everything. Nearly 300 guests filled the ballroom. Investment firms, healthcare executives, journalists, television crews, lifestyle influencers, corporate attorneys. Every conversation sounded expensive. Waiters moved quietly between tables, carrying champagne on silver trays. A string quartet played near the stage. Everything about the evening had been designed to communicate one message: success. My mother spotted me almost immediately. For half a second, she looked surprised. Then her professional smile returned. She crossed the room with practiced confidence and wrapped both arms around me before I could react. There you are. Anyone watching would have believed we were a loving family reunited after years apart. I'm so happy you came, she kissed my cheek. The photographers loved it. Camera flashes exploded around us. Exactly what she wanted. Stay close to us tonight, she whispered. The press will be taking family photos. Family? Interesting word. 8 years ago, she had informed me I no longer belonged to one. Tonight, I was suddenly useful again. Lila joined us moments later. She looked radiant. A custom ivory evening gown, diamond earrings, perfect makeup. Not a trace of illness anywhere. She hugged me carefully, making sure photographers had a clear angle. I've missed you. It sounded rehearsed. Maybe it was. Maybe she had practiced those words in front of a mirror. I smiled politely. So have I. Neither of us believed it. The cameras did. By 7:30 p.m., dinner was served. My assigned seat was surprisingly close to the stage. Close enough to observe every facial expression. Far enough that nobody paid much attention to me. Perfect. Throughout dinner, I watched investors move between tables. Business cards exchanged, hands shaken, future partnerships quietly negotiated. Nobody was investing in vitamins. They were investing in a story. At 8:18 p.m., the lights dimmed. The quartet stopped playing. A spotlight illuminated the stage. My mother walked to the podium first. Good evening, she said. Her voice carried warmth perfected through years of fundraising. Tonight is not about business. It's about hope, applause. She thanked donors, investors, employees, supporters. Then she invited the company's founder onto the stage. My incredible daughter, Lila. The applause lasted nearly 20 seconds. Lila stepped into the spotlight with practiced confidence. The giant screen behind her displayed photographs from the past 8 years. Hospital rooms, smiling nurses, IV stands. Inspirational quotes. Slow piano music filled the ballroom. Every emotional detail had been carefully engineered. Ladies and gentlemen, she began. When I was 19, doctors told me my future was uncertain. The room became completely silent. I remember wondering if I'd ever have a normal life. She paused. Perfect timing. I remember praying for one more birthday. Several guests lowered their eyes. Someone quietly wiped away tears. Lila continued. There were days when I couldn't imagine surviving. My mother never gave up. Neither did all of you. The screen changed again. Photographs of fundraising events. Children hugging Lila. Hospital hallways. More carefully selected images. Your kindness gave me another chance. And that's why Lila Life Wellness exists. So others can find hope. The way I did. Thunderous applause. Standing ovation from several tables. Everything was unfolding exactly according to their script. I looked at my watch. 8:39 p.m. Almost time. Lila reached the emotional climax of her speech. If my journey has taught me anything, it's that miracles are real. Another pause, more applause. She smiled, confident, victorious, completely unaware that the next 3 minutes would erase everything she had built. 8:41 p.m. I quietly stood from my chair. Nobody noticed. Guests assumed I was walking toward the restroom. Instead, I walked calmly toward the audiovisual control station positioned beside the stage. Earlier that week, I had already confirmed how the presentation system worked. 1 HDMI input, 1 control console, 1 operator. The technician recognized the authorization badge I had been issued earlier that afternoon. I have the updated closing presentation, I said calmly. He glanced at the schedule, saw my name listed, and nodded. 1 click. That was all it took. 8:42 p.m. I inserted the USB drive. The operator switched the input. Lila's smiling face disappeared instantly. No transition, no fade, no animation. One moment, the audience was looking at inspirational photographs. The next, the screen turned white. A federal document appeared. Large black letters. Impossible to miss. Independent Federal Diagnostic Review. The ballroom fell silent, not gradually, instantly. Lila stopped speaking in the middle of a sentence. She turned around. Confusion crossed her face. Then recognition. Then fear. The report advanced automatically. The first page displayed only 2 conclusions. No evidence of systemic, autoimmune, or degenerative disease. Patient is clinically healthy. Nothing else. No opinions. No commentary. Just official findings. My mother looked at the screen. Every trace of color drained from her face. For the first time in my life. I saw her unable to control the room. Someone in the front row whispered, "What is this?" Nobody answered. The next slide appeared. Financial summary. Lila Hope Foundation. Total donations, $417,860. A pie chart filled the screen. Green, blue, red. 3 categories. 18%. Verified medical expenses. 64%. Luxury travel, designer clothing, 5-star hotels. 18%. Business startup capital. A low murmur spread across the ballroom, like distant thunder. Investors leaned toward one another. Phones appeared. 1, then 5, then 20. Within seconds, dozens of people were reading emails, checking company records, messaging assistants. I recognized the expressions. Not anger. Risk assessment. A venture capitalist near the front quietly turned to his legal advisor. The lawyer didn't speak. He simply shook his head once. Across the room, another investor closed his folder containing the evening's partnership agreement. He didn't reopen it. One journalist stood up. Another lifted a camera. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" Another voice answered, "That's a federal report." The room grew louder. Questions spread from table to table. Nobody listened to Lila anymore. My mother rushed toward the control station. "Turn it off," she shouted. The technician looked helpless. "I can't." The presentation continued automatically. Bank transfers, transaction histories, luxury resort invoices, designer boutiques, European travel expenses. Every figure referenced, every page time-stamped, every source verified. Lila stepped backward. She tried speaking. "This isn't..." The sentence died before it reached the audience. Facts are difficult to interrupt. My mother reached the stage. "Everyone, please." She forced a smile that collapsed almost immediately. There has been some misunderstanding, but nobody looked at her. They looked at the screen because the screen wasn't asking them to trust anyone. It was showing documents. By 8:44 p.m., the ballroom no longer sounded like a celebration. It sounded like a trading floor after catastrophic news. Conversations erupted everywhere. Phones rang. Assistants received urgent instructions. Lawyers were already typing emails. Several investors quietly stood and walked toward the exits while speaking into Bluetooth headsets. One sentence reached me clearly. "Freeze the wire." Another. "Cancel tomorrow's signing." Another. "Tell compliance we're pulling out." 8 years of storytelling, unraveled in less than 2 minutes. I walked onto the stage. Every eye followed me, not because I demanded attention, because silence had already given it to me. I picked up the microphone. I didn't clear my throat. I didn't raise my voice. I simply waited until the room settled. Then I spoke. My name is Elia Harper. I am not here because I wanted revenge. I looked across the audience, at investors, journalists, executives, at my mother, at my sister. I'm here because facts deserve the same opportunity that lies have enjoyed for the past 8 years. Absolute silence, I continued. The documents on the screen have been independently verified. Every financial transaction can be traced. Every medical conclusion comes directly from certified federal records. I am asking you for only one thing. I paused. Don't believe me. The room remained perfectly still. Verify everything. That sentence changed the atmosphere completely. I wasn't asking anyone for trust. I was asking them to examine evidence, and professionals understand the difference. Behind me, the final slide appeared. One sentence. Simple. Black letters on a white background. Truth does not become weaker because it arrives late. No applause followed. There couldn't be. Applause belongs to performances. What happened that night wasn't a performance. It was the moment an empire built on emotion collided with documented truth. And documented truth always leaves the room standing on its own. I didn't stay to watch the ballroom empty. There was nothing left for me to say. The documents had spoken more clearly than I ever could. I walked out of the Grand Regent Hotel at 9:03 p.m. The night air felt unusually cool. Behind me, dozens of people were still standing outside the entrance, talking in small groups. Journalists were interviewing guests. Lawyers were already arriving. Luxury cars continued pulling away from the hotel, carrying investors who no longer wanted their names connected to Lila Life Wellness. For the first time in 8 years, I wasn't carrying the weight of their story anymore. I drove home, made myself a cup of chamomile tea, took off my blazer, placed my grandmother's watch on the bedside table, and went to sleep. For the first time in years, I slept through the entire night. The next morning, my phone started vibrating before sunrise. 6:11 a.m. One missed call, unknown number. Then another and another. By the time I poured my first cup of coffee at 7 a.m., my phone looked like it was malfunctioning. 29 missed calls, 23 voice messages, 17 text messages. Almost all of them came from one person. Mom. 8 years of silence, followed by 29 calls in less than 12 hours. I didn't answer. Instead, I made breakfast. Toast, scrambled eggs, fresh coffee. The television played quietly in the background. Halfway through breakfast, a breaking news banner appeared. Federal authorities launch review into Lila Life Wellness and related charity. The anchor explained that several investors had submitted formal complaints overnight after receiving copies of financial documentation presented during the gala. The investigation had already begun. I muted the television, not because I didn't want to hear it, because I already knew exactly what would happen next. Federal investigations don't move quickly, but once they begin, they rarely move backward. At 8:14 a.m., another voicemail arrived. I finally pressed play. My mother's voice sounded completely different from the woman who had stood confidently on stage the night before. Elia, please call me. This has gotten completely out of control. You don't understand what you've done. The message ended after 34 seconds. 5 minutes later, another. This isn't just about us anymore. There are employees. There are families. You have to help us fix this. Then another. We can explain everything. Another. We made mistakes. Another. Please. She never apologized. Even now, she wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking for damage control. Around 9:30 a.m., my work computer displayed an internal compliance notification. Temporary financial restrictions approved. The primary operating accounts belonging to Lila Life Wellness had been frozen pending review. Minutes later, another notice appeared. The Lila Hope Foundation had also been placed under financial investigation. Every significant transaction would now require federal authorization. Money that had moved freely for years had stopped moving overnight. By lunchtime, several national retailers suspended distribution agreements. 2 investment firms publicly withdrew from pending partnerships. The Keynote Health Conference, where Lila had been scheduled to speak quietly, removed her name from the program. Everything happened exactly the way Marcus had predicted, not through emotion, through procedure. At 1:17 p.m., Marcus stopped by my office. He placed a paper coffee cup on my desk. "No sugar," he said, the way I liked it. He didn't congratulate me. He didn't mention the gala. He simply asked, "How many calls?" 29. He nodded once. "They're not calling because they miss you. I know. They're calling because they finally understand what evidence does." That was the end of the conversation. Nothing else needed to be said. The calls continued for 3 days, then 4. My mother tried everything: phone calls, emails, voicemails, messages through distant relatives, even handwritten letters. Each one carried the same message: "Please help us. We can fix this. We're still family, family." The word sounded different now. 8 years earlier, family had meant obedience. Now it meant convenience. On the 5th day, I finally replied. Not with a speech, not with accusations, not with anger, just one sentence. The documents speak for themselves. Then I blocked the number. It was the last communication we ever had. The investigation continued for months. Federal auditors reconstructed years of financial records. Donation platforms produced transaction histories. Banks released account statements. Independent medical experts confirmed there had never been evidence supporting the public narrative of a terminal illness. The numbers told the story without emotion, more accurately than any witness ever could. Lila Life Wellness shut down before the investigation officially concluded. Its website disappeared. Its products vanished from stores. The charity dissolved shortly afterward. Some people later asked me whether I felt satisfied, whether exposing them had given me closure. The honest answer is no, because revenge had never been my goal. If revenge had been my goal, I would have exposed them 8 years earlier. Instead, I waited until every number could be verified, until every document could stand on its own, until the truth no longer depended on anyone believing me. People often think justice is loud, that it arrives with shouting, or dramatic speeches, or courtroom confessions. Sometimes it does, but not always. Sometimes justice is remarkably quiet. Sometimes it looks like a spreadsheet, a bank statement, a medical report, a federal audit. Numbers don't cry, they don't manipulate, they don't rewrite history. They simply remain exactly what they are. And that's why they are so dangerous to people who build their lives on lies. This morning, nearly a year after that gala, I sat on the balcony of my apartment with a cup of coffee. The same apartment I bought with money I earned honestly. The morning sun warmed the wooden table beside me. A gentle breeze moved the curtains through the open balcony door. No reporters, no cameras, no fundraising campaigns, just silence. Peaceful, ordinary silence. For years, I thought freedom meant proving my family wrong. I was mistaken. Freedom arrived the moment I stopped carrying the burden of their lies. The truth had never needed me to shout. It only needed someone willing to present it. If this story resonated with you, remember this. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. Sometimes all you have to do is show the facts. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that truth doesn't always arrive quickly, but when it does, it speaks for itself.